Hello, hello. Welcome to Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jared Jones, research specialties, ancient systems of meditation, cognitive science of meditation, Buddhist philosophy, and the philosophy of science. I've also been training as a Buddhist for about 20 years and in the Dragon Gate School of Taoism for another 6. So, my mission with this class, such as it is to teach people living in the modern world and living the busy lives that we live now with technology and mm, responsibilities, work, family, hobbies, etc. How is it do you that you can successfully train in this thing called meditation while living in the real world? Very, very difficult subject indeed. So, such as my efforts are, humble as they are, I'm doing my best to try to teach people how to train in meditation in the modern world, in the real world. And for those of you who have been around a little bit, I'm also producing content because as a Buddhist, there are quite a few challenges being presented to the worldview that's put forward by Buddhism, for lack of a better term. Hey, sweet and sour, welcome. And so I have a number of different sort of approaches that I'm taking to try to give Buddhists a little bit more comfort, let's say, in a little to make them feel a bit more comfortable in their own skin in terms of the worldview that Buddhism provides, because it does a pretty good job actually of describing the world, describing human psychology, and supporting itself as a philosophical and religious system. And the more secularized versions of Buddhism that have become popular in the West, in particular, don't do a very good job of doing that. And if you ignore all of the philosophical and religious content in Buddhism, you can't defend it from the best challenges that are presented against Buddhist thought in modern academic and theological sort of circles. So I'm doing my best to try to present some of that information. And then I'm also doing a podcast at the moment. Very exciting announcement. I'm going to be putting up a formal announcement, but if you're here, you get to hear it a little bit early. There's a there's a practitioner, Western practitioner, who's a layperson, married with a daughter, who's completed 2 3-year retreats in Kagyu and Nyingma traditions. And I had a lovely conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and we got it on the calendar to have him be on the podcast. So he's going to be podcast guest number 2 on Sit and See on the Two Truths podcast with Dr. Jared Jones. So very excited to have Lama Karma is his name. Lama Karma on the upcoming show. I'll be putting a formal announcement out, but it will be lovely, I think, to pick his brain and see what he thinks as both a married man and a father living in the world, having to support himself through ordinary means, not just through donations and so forth. Uh, Having also completed really intensive long-term retreat, right? So I think this should be very interesting. I have a few questions for him, and then just like last time, we'll open it up for audience questions after he gets done. Dawa Dawa, welcome to the stream. I'm not sure I've seen you here before. Have you been to this class before? Right. So Lama Karma will be on the podcast. I'll put up an announcement so that people have time to join. I think we scheduled it for a Saturday at a time where most time zones are online. So that'll be good. Also, been been working on some exciting stuff. Been working on some exciting stuff for the Lohan project. I know you're all probably getting tired of hearing about the Lohan project, but man, every time I scratch the surface of the Lohan lineage that Neil Ripsky has, I find that more and more details are being verified with receipts, let's say. So I had a very exciting update on Neil Ripsky's lineage last night. So Neil didn't even know this, but he had a written in Chinese and in a type of Chinese that isn't entirely modern script. It's sort of a more rare, slightly more rare script. Uh, Dr. Chen Qiming himself, who taught this lineage to Neil, had written the names of the 18 moves in the form, and then he had written a little note at the bottom about what he thinks is good, what the form is really good for, because he was a traditional Chinese medical doctor, and um, and then he also wrote a little bit about the lineage itself and how he got it. And in that description, which he had on his wall in Chinese for years in his little medicine shop, he says this lineage was passed to me from a Tibetan lama, which was this last weird, not weird, but last kind of challenging detail where I really wanted to have something showing this connection from uh, having this connection from the Tibetan side. It's quite interesting. So he says in the notes underneath the form, the description of the form, he says, "I learned this form from a Tibetan lineage holder of the form in the 1960s," which is exactly what Neil had told me. And likewise, at the forward to his book mentions that he frequently gave out medical care for free in the Guangzhou area. And Neil said, and this is a totally different person, right? Before he even knew Neil. And Neil said the reason that Dr. Chen ended up with the Lohan lineage in the first place is that he gave free medical care to a Tibetan monk. So we have more or less now receipts, you could say, for all of the different aspects of the story as far back as we can go in the story for the lineage, which makes me really, really happy. Not that we had to have that because Neil's a pretty extraordinary practitioner of internal arts and so forth, and his teacher has no issues in terms of controversy or character flaws. Was very well regarded, taught at universities, has medical papers published in medical journals for traditional Chinese medicine in China, published by a publisher there, et cetera, et cetera. So very, very credible all around, but how to say, still quite nice to have something on paper, especially as an academic. My mind is like, not that I don't believe this, but it's so much nicer if you have it on paper somewhere. Anyway, so we're still doing a little bit to get a little bit more detail on the lineage itself, but uh, it was kind of a bombshell last night when I saw that for the first time. So I feel quite happy now about that we can show a little bit more sort of breadcrumbs that verify everything. Not that you have to have that, but it's nice. So we have Dawa Dawa in the room, who I don't know yet. Sandra Horn we have in the room, who I also don't know yet. Uh, no, so Sandra, my degree is a degree. It's an interdisciplinary degree in philosophy and religious studies. For my master's degree, as a philosopher and student of religious studies, I looked at the cognitive science for meditation research. And then for my PhD, I compared a number of philosophical positions from the Western canon to one particular stream of Buddhist philosophy in the, how to say, in the Indo-Tibetan line of Buddhist thought. So generally speaking, I call myself a philosopher. If you're asking about my academic credentials, I say I'm a philosopher. This is where my training is mainly, but also I've done a fair amount of what's called religious studies, which is not studying religion, but rather studying about religions. So you're learning about the structure of religion, what is religion, how does religion function in society, what are the psychological factors that go into religion, sociological factors, historical factors. How do you historically critically study a text that is religious? So it's learning about religions. So this is what I spent my academic career, such as it is, doing is religious studies and then also philosophy. Right. Lovely. Well, my friends, do we have questions about? Oh, good to see you, Luck. Glad to have you here. Uh, do we have questions about practice today? If there are any questions about practice, we'll do those for a few minutes, and then we'll jump into our practice starting at 9. And I think what I'd like to do is end at the usual time without a big Q&A afterwards, so that I can get to doing a few other things that need to get done today. Photography. Not sure what you mean by photography. I don't mind. You can call me Mister. You can call me Jared. It doesn't bother me at all. Are there questions about meditation, Sandra? That's what this class is about, is meditating. Uh, do any of the more regular students have questions about their practice? If not, it's okay. We'll just get started at 9 o'clock or a little after 9 if there are no questions. Oh, the nobleman. Welcome. Thank you, thank you. We shall do our best. We shall do our best to have a good session. if you have any questions about meditation practice, you're welcome to put them in the chat. I'll let it linger for just another minute while I finish my coffee. Since there are a few more of the regulars here, let me repeat some of the announcements in brief that I made at the opening, because these are pretty exciting. So, Lama Karma, who's is a Western practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism, who completed two separate 3-year retreats, one in the Kagyu tradition, the other in the Nyingma tradition, is at least my understanding of the practices that he did. Who's now living as a layperson, who's married with a daughter, is going to be coming on the podcast as the second podcast guest. I'm also still working on getting an Advaita practitioner. I'm thinking there are two different gentlemen who are quite well informed as in regards to Advaita practice and Advaita philosophy. And I'm going to try to maybe bring one of these Sikh gentlemen on to speak since the other gentleman had some personal things going on and couldn't make it. So those are coming up, and there'll be an announcement very soon for Lama Karma's date. We have a date set. I just need to put together all the stuff and send it out to everyone. So that'll be up very soon. The information for that'll be up very soon. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. Same format as before. We'll have 30 minutes to an hour of me just asking him questions that I think are interesting. And then we'll open it up to the audience. So anybody who turns up, I cannot promise that I will put every single question that comes through to him because you know how the chat can be, but I'll try to put the very best questions I see coming through to him so that he can answer them. What else? In terms of the Lohan Palm project that I'm doing with Neil, very exciting development. So Neil didn't even know he had this because he doesn't read Chinese well enough to know what he had, but he had a little document from the wall of Dr. Chen Qiming's medicine shop. And this document has the names in Chinese of the 18 different movements in the Lohan Palm form. And below it, there's a little note from Dr. Chen Qiming where he's saying, "Here's how I learned about this. Here's how I learned this lineage." And in that little note, he says, in the 1960s, a Tibetan lama, a lineage holder, taught me this form, which is exactly what he told Neil. And now we have basically, for lack of a better term, a receipt, right? We have something from Dr. Chen Qiming himself saying this, which is really nice. So, yeah. In terms of other announcements, I'm also working on a video right now on the Kalama Sutta. It was quite famous. It's regarded by many people to be sort of a carte blanche skepticism sutra, which is a sutta, which is not at all what it is. And I'll be talking about that in the next PhD Responds video. Okay. So all of that is coming up. So we have, oh man, and I can't wait to tell you all the other thing that's happening with the Lohan thing. I don't want to say anything about it until it actually is definitely happening or already happened. But your minds will be blown when you find out the other thing that we're doing with the Lohan lineage at the moment, if it works out. If it doesn't, yeah, I just won't bring it up again. Sandra Horn. So, Sandra, just so you know, this class is about meditation, and I teach this class to help people living in the real world learn how to train in meditation, both when they go into retreat and when they're coming out of retreat and when they're living in the real world not doing meditative retreat. How do you actually train in meditation? And so that's the main purpose of this class, sort of a secular approach, right? Although I'm Buddhist and have some Taoist training, this is mainly sort of a secular approach to teaching meditation. And then in terms of how to say, in terms of helping people with meditation, I have some students who are Sikh. I have one person who's training with me, or at least getting some information from me at the moment, who's Hindu. Um, have one student who's a couple students who are Christian. So it doesn't really, matter to me in terms of the rest of what you're doing. And even in terms of the things that I do, there are people that are much better at this than me. So in fact, sometimes I send people to teachers and I say, you know what, this lineage of Zen that's nearby you is really good. And then a few weeks later, someone will say, I'm just going to focus on my Zen practice and I'm not going to do your stuff anymore for now, but it's been really, really helpful and thank you for helping me. And I go, great, fantastic. you know, I go, wonderful. Go find a good lineage with somebody who's even better at this than me. You know, so I hope, and actually pray that people who do my practices also find a really great lineage of whatever it is they're already interested in. Eastern Orthodox practice, Hindu practice, Jain practice, Sikh practice, so that the stuff that I teach, if they're interested, can enhance and enable them to do what they're doing in a lineage even better than if they didn't have an older brother, let's say, to help them understand how to get the most out of a lineage of traditional teachings while living in the real world. So that's what I'm doing. So, you know, maybe the only credit I could claim for myself is that I've gone around and trained with some people that are recognized as quite good at all this as lay people, and I've put the best of those things together, but I didn't make any of those things up, you know? I took what other smart people, capable people have done, and I just packaged it together in such a way that I thought, if I was starting out, I wish I would have gotten this information in this order because it would have made things so much easier, faster, way less wasted time and effort. I wish I had gotten this information. But it's all information that's already out there. None of what I'm doing is actually unique. The only thing that's unique is that I've put it together in one package in one place and gearing it just towards people living in the real world. So, as a matter of fact, I'm worse at this than a lot of people that I know. Like the people that I really respect, I'm really incapable compared to the people that I learned this from. I'm way down here compared to the people that are good at this. You know, it's part of why I say people should have a lineage. And then what I do can help with the lineage. But you have some people in the lineage, hopefully, who are way up here in terms of capability. I'm maybe here, and you're maybe here, right? And I'm just helping you get to here so that you can go through the whole lineage instead of hanging out down here the whole time. Assuming that you think meditation's a real thing and it's worth doing and all that, which if you don't, then, you know, no problem. This isn't the class for you. No problem. You know, that's your business. We're all adults. So you can do what you want. No problem. Okay. So, Lakshmi, welcome. Hello, hello. Glad to have you here. If you'd like to join the meditation, we're going to be doing a little bit of practice today. Very new to meditation, totally fine. The stuff that I teach is suitable for beginners. And it's meant to build the skills of meditation one at a time. Some of what I teach will sound different from what you expect because most of most of what people teach in meditation circles more generally is designed for a retreat setting. And so, especially the first techniques you get often are not, in my opinion, are not the right ones for real life because our minds are very, very stirred up in real life. And after 2 or 3 days of retreat, your mind is not really stirred up as much. And so a lot of things can work that won't work on a random Sunday night after your mind's been all stirred up all day, right? Okay. Luck says dreamt Neil Ripsky. He's very good and did help us with adjustment on our bodies. You had a little 2, 3 year old girl attended by your side. Not your child, but almost. That's interesting. I wonder who that would be. Wonder who that would be. So my wife and I don't have kids. I actually haven't told any of you this, but my wife and me decided not to have kids because I wanted to do this. The people that I teach are my kids. The people that I teach and that I help. This is my family. The genetics that I'm passing on are the genetics of the training that I do. This is it. So there's nothing else besides helping with this. No, they don't necessarily, but and your kids can be really helpful for your practice. But my wife and me got together when we got to the decision making process for having kids, and for different reasons decided, looking at what we want to accomplish in our lives and do with our lives, if we had kids 10 or 15 years, we wouldn't be able to do that in the way that we want. I want to be able to teach this stuff with the best years of my mental life and physical life. I want to help people with this. And I want to pour every bit of energy into it that I can. And if I had to also raise a child, which is very demanding, intensive, takes time and care and thought and energy and effort and money, right? And doing this sort of thing takes a certain amount of money and so on and so forth. That if we had kids, we wouldn't be able to do it at a very high level. And so we decided not to have kids. Yeah. We got very close to adopting. We actually went through adoption training in the US, and then we went through adoption training in the UK, and we got in the UK, we got certified to adopt. And it takes a long time. You have to go through a bunch of training, and they teach you how to deal with people that have all sorts of different things from childhood, because a lot of kids that are in the system, they have problems because they went through tough things. That's why they're in the system. And so they train you on how to help kids that have problems. In any case, yeah. So we went through the whole process of getting ready to adopt, and then we had a big conversation about it, and and that's where we ended up. I said, I want to be able to do retreats. I want to be able to visit my teachers. I want to be able to write books. I want to be able to teach people. And when I think about the amount of time that would be required for 10, 15, 18 years for raising children, I would rather put all that time and energy into helping other people rather than raising a child. And for different reasons, but similar reasons, my wife said the same thing. So in terms of the fetter, okay, let's talk about that briefly and then we'll do the practice because we have some new people too. Uh, so weird walk. Um, the reason that I teach this practice of intensive breath meditation is because it tells you very quickly that you can't actually do it. That's one of the reasons I teach it. When you actually have a practice that shows you how much you suck at trying to take all your attention and put it in one place, you realize very quickly, oh, I don't have that skill yet. And if you do something where there's very little force, very little intent, and the mind is sort of vaguely on the object, of course, you can spend years. And I know people literally who have spent decades. One of my students, breaks my heart, said, I spent 30 years doing secular mindfulness and Vipassana practices, and in 6 months made more progress training my mind than I did in the previous 30 years combined using my techniques, she said. It's one of my senior students who's been around for a while. And so this is what I'm trying to help people avoid, because it's very easy to think, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it." When your mind's just running around and you don't notice because you've been given the wrong technique for the situation you're in. This first technique, 5 minutes, bring your mind to the object. Don't screw around with the mind. Make the mind do what you said. And if it doesn't, notice that it's not doing what you said. Shows you really quickly that you can't do it. But it also works out that muscle of being able to actually do it for the first time. Some people go, oh man, your breath meditation is really messing up my meditation. My mind used to be so calm. And I'm going, no, it didn't. You just didn't notice how screwed up it was. And now you're noticing that you can't make it do what you want for the first time. It's not that my meditation is difficult, weird. It's that you've never done meditation. It's not difficult. It's not difficult at all. This is the beginning. This is the first skill of actual meditation. Taking your attention, putting it where you want, pulling the bandwidth of your attention inward so that that's the only thing that appears in your experience and holding it there. That's what you're asking your mind to do. Excuse me, mind, can you just go here and be here and not move for 5 minutes? Can you just do that, please? And while you're doing that, I'm going to count, right? That's all I want to happen. Can you just do that? And you notice immediately your mind won't listen. And so therefore you have to have force to meet the force of your mind not doing what you told it to do. So you have to remember also, where does this fit in the hierarchy of trainings, right? Where does this fit in a hierarchical process of trainings? Because extreme force of intent is one approach, one aspect for one part of the training process, one part of doing something. By the time you get all the way over here to Foundation 4, Mahamudra style practice, you're pulling intent back and you're abiding in the nature of tactile consciousness, visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, smell consciousness, taste consciousness. And then you're pulling the bandwidth in and being aware of mental consciousness, right? In a state of being, not a state of doing. And then if you're talking about, you want to do some of the mystical practices, blah, 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 in the Western esoteric traditions, where you're becoming aware of whatever mentally appears when you do certain things, first you make the mind calm so that it's like a lake with a completely smooth surface. And then you just wait to see what appears on the surface of the lake. But if the surface of the lake is moving, you can't tell what's a reflection and what's just the waves on the lake. This is why they say, I hope this isn't too weird for people, but in the classics, they say, if you have clairvoyance, for example, that comes from a natural predisposition to clairvoyance from past lives, it's sort of like the waves on the surface of the lake. You're going to sometimes you won't be able to tell if it's actual clairvoyance or just something you made up in your head. You can't tell. And sometimes you have clairvoyance, but it's mixed with a bunch of stuff from your mind in this life, and you're not sure if it's accurate or not. When the mind is completely smooth, like a clear lake, where the surface reflects whatever's there and isn't adding extra content to what it's reflecting, that mind can have extremely reliable clairvoyance. And therefore, according to the classics, if you want to have those kinds of capabilities like you're talking about, you need to have a mind that has samadhi, extremely stable, extremely lucid. And then, like the calm surface of a lake, it can reflect the moon, it can reflect a tree, it can reflect whatever happens to be there to be reflected. So that comes at the far end of this process, not this part. This part, your mind is screwed up and is constantly doing stuff, and you have to stop it from doing that, or you never get over here. Again, I hope this doesn't sound too weird, but like there are people in my community through Sarah J. Monastery, for example, who go into retreat, and these capabilities are so common, it's not even talked about as a big deal, you know? They're like, oh yeah, so and so went into retreat for 6 months and he started recalling past lives, and then he started reading the minds of the other people in the other retreat huts, and we were having a good laugh because they were thinking things that were kind of funny, and blah 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 blah. Because it's just a side effect of the process. It's not what you're doing. It's like taking a drug for stopping your heart problem, and it turns out that you get, I don't know, you get better circulation in your feet or something, right? And you go, oh well, my feet are warmer than they used to be. But that's not why you're taking the drug. You're trying to stop yourself from dying from a heart attack. Right? So likewise, the little bit of clairvoyance you get from doing this isn't the reason you're doing it from the point of view of these systems. It's just like this side effect that happens because you're doing the main thing. So it's not even, generally speaking, you don't even make a big deal out of it when it happens. This is part of the reason they don't talk about it that much. Anyways, yeah. So long story short, even if you don't believe in all of that, which is fine, right? Again, teaching from a relatively secular perspective, even if you don't believe in all that, these systems, from a classical standpoint, say all of those capabilities to make them stable, they come about because the mind has become extremely stable and extremely lucid. Okay. The antidepressant, yeah, yeah. So there's all sorts of things where you're taking a drug to do something and then it does something else sort of on the side. But for to use my classic example, let's say that you were dying of cancer. Let's say you had liver cancer and you started taking a drug to cure your liver cancer, and then it turned out that it also, I don't know, it also made you be able to run slightly faster or something for some reason, okay? And then you learned that, well, if I take way more than I'm supposed to, then I can run really fast. Or if I take way less than I'm supposed to, I can run really fast. Right? Let's say that it's like this, right? The problem is you're dying of liver cancer, and now you're focused on the fact that you can run a little faster if you abuse your medication and don't take it the right way. It's mind-boggling, right? It's absolutely mind-boggling. So it's the same from the point of view of these systems. You get all these side effects that are interesting, including clairvoyance and this and that and this and that. But at the same time, you're dying of samsara, right? Not only dying once, you're dying millions of times. You're encountering unbelievable suffering. The Buddha said that if we piled up your heads just from the lifetimes where your head has been cut off by a king, the heads would be taller than just your heads, your skulls would be taller than Mount Everest. If we took all your tears that you've cried from people dying that you care about, it would fill more than the great oceans on the entire planet. And you're worried about getting slightly better clairvoyance for the sake of what? Being able to tell people what girlfriend they're going to have 2 years from now? Okay, good times. I mean, you know what I mean? And you could be using this mind and this capability you're gaining to cure suffering forever for everyone. And instead, you're getting distracted by a side effect so that you can know what shoes someone's going to like if you buy them for Christmas. You know what I mean? or some similarly paltry thing that you're helping someone with, like, uh, I mean, again, it's just mind-boggling. Not that you can't use those for those things. Sure. If you have those capabilities, use them for that, but don't pursue those capabilities. Pursue the main thing. And if they happen, they happen. This is the perspective of these systems is like focus on the main thing. These things may happen, they may not. Focus on the main thing. Okay, let's do, since there are new people today, Burgundy Bandit is back. Burgundy Bandit is back. Yeah, sometimes supernormal powers can hook people in, but the thing is also, this will be the last thing, and then we should do the practice. The thing is, if you see somebody do something that violates the laws of physics, or they read your mind a few times, or this or that, and they're a great Dharma practitioner, probably within a year or two, you're going to start doubting whether or not that was real, because you'll come up with clever ways they could have done that without actually doing it, and this and that and this and that. And you'll want them to do it again, and you'll want them to do it more convincingly, under more controlled circumstances, under this, under that. And so, generally speaking, the value of this is not very much in terms of motivating people for a long period of time. Under the conditions where it is valuable for that, there are teachers who will do those things if you know them for a while. I know teachers like this. I have teachers like this. I have teachers who've shown me things that, as a skeptical academic, I've gone, whoa, that's, how did you do that? Right? But how much value does that have? Like, if I got on here every day and I told you those wild things I've seen or heard or that other beings have done, pretty quickly the entire chat will be filled with people going, oh, all of that's fake, and it could have been this, it could have been that, they could have done this, they could have done those four things. So it's meaningless. Okay. Right. So, yeah, all of these systems say you can gain all sorts of capabilities by doing this. Those are side effects. It's just stuff that will happen if you do it. It's not the main thing you're pursuing. So, carry on with the main thing, and then the side effects will happen. No problem. You know? And then if you're in another tradition, like weird is in a tradition where you do that stuff, this stuff will make it better. If all of the stuff that you're trying to get from this, if you're kind of going like this and you're going through the side effects to the main practice, which can also happen, doing the real practices will eventually make all of these other things better, right? Even according to those traditions, from what I know of Western esoteric traditions, one thing you really need is an extremely stable, strong, focused mind to make certain things happen in those traditions also. So it's over there too. Okay. All right, let's just do some basic practice today, since we have a bunch of new folks. Like I said, for some of you, this will sound unusual. So let me briefly re-justify. Sorry, it just cracks me up because every time you comment something, luck 108. Every time you comment something, you delete it. But I've already read it by the time you delete it. Might as well just leave it all in there. Okay, so we'll just do the basic practice. So the basic practice that I teach, I call Foundation One. Foundation One. Foundation One is intensive breath meditation. The what's intensive about it is that you're doing 5 minutes of extremely high intensity building of concentration. In particular, your ability to actually place your mind somewhere, pull the bandwidth of awareness into that place, or pool your awareness in that place, and then hold it there with the awareness pooled in that place. So this practice has two aspects. Very, very, very briefly, I learned this technique from one of my heart mentors, who was an accomplished Zen practitioner with 30 years of experience, recognized in his lineage as a great Zen practitioner, and also another 15, 20 years of Tibetan tantric practice in the Geluk lineage, also recognized as a great practitioner in that lineage. So, as simple and sort of the short amount of time that it requires, et cetera, just know that this technique is coming from an extremely capable practitioner, and it works. I have lots of students now who tell me their minds are absolutely blown at how quickly and how effective this technique is. So it'll sound unusual, but the reason is it's designed for real life. It's not designed for retreat. You can do it in retreat, but this is designed to work in the midst of real life with all the distractions of real life. Okay? So, what does it mean to meditate? Uh, Certainly, what it does not mean to meditate is that your awareness is jumping around all over the place. Certainly, what it doesn't mean to meditate is that you cannot get your awareness to pool where you want it to pool. Right now, your awareness is spread out between your five senses and mental content. So, this is your mind. Ah. Right? Yeah, this is your mind all day long. When you say mind, could you please, if you don't mind, my mind, will you just go to the tip of my nostril over here in the tactile awareness? Just take all of this activity and bandwidth and spread out everywhere. Can you just take all of that and place it in this little patch of skin near my nostril? Could you do that? And while you're doing that, can you just count a few numbers with mental content? Can you just do those two things so that the only two things in reality are the numbers counting in mental content and the tip of my nostril? That those are the only two things that exist because all my awareness has been placed into those two things. Out of control mind, if you would please just do this, this would be nice, right? This is what you're asking it to do. It absolutely will not do it. And if you sit there being nice, quote unquote, and I'll just let my mind do what it wants, then it does this, which is what it's been doing all day. So you have to use enough force. Great force of distraction is pulling your mind out to the senses. Great force of distraction, pulling the mind out of sort of a state of concentration and into rapid generation of mental content. And so you're going to take your attention with great force and meet that great force to make it stop. Incredibly powerful force requires an incredibly powerful force meeting it to make it stop. You don't have 3 days to let your mind slowly settle down by not stirring it up. You have 15 minutes a day, or 30 minutes a day, or an hour a day of practice. You have to have high quality in that practice, or you never get the results. So, foundation one is being able to grab your mental attention, cram it into one place, and keep it there for 5 minutes. Doing this with great force because your distractions also have great force. Okay? So, this is the first technique. The reason it's only 5 minutes is for most people in the beginning, this will be an extremely demanding practice. You have to put every ounce of you into the practice. My teacher went so far as to say, imagine someone standing over you with a sword, and they look you in the eye and they say, if you lose your focus for 1 moment, I'm going to cut you in half. One fraction of a moment, and I'm going to cut you in half. Like this, every single ounce of your being, as if your life depends upon it, has to be grabbed and pulled in and kept in. When you do it with that amount of force, then you work out the muscle of being able to pull your attention into somewhere. And then you work out this other muscle of being able, once the mind's been pulled in, being able to hold it where you've put it, to actually hold it there. So those are the two muscles we're working out for 5 minutes extremely intensively. Okay. So now that you have those instructions, apply maximum force. This is not a gentle practice. It's not a relaxing practice. Struggle with your mind like your life depends upon it. This is the first technique. And once you get good at this technique, you'll be able to get your mind into a decent state of concentration, probably within 3 or 4 breaths, which means that once you're a relatively more like a more capable practitioner, you'll be able to grab your attention, pull it in, make the mind pretty calm within a few breaths. And therefore, you can get to your main practices, whatever you're mainly doing, in a very short period of time instead of your mind screwing around for 20 minutes or 30 minutes before it settles down. So, in the long run, this is a tool you have in your toolkit. For now, it's the technique that's going to get you over the first couple of problems you have in meditation. Okay? So, here we go. So, just breathe in through the nostrils. Find a patch of skin in one of the nostrils or near one of the nostrils where you feel the most sensations. Latch your mind on to that patch of skin. Don't imagine anything. Don't visualize anything. Don't analyze anything. Don't use words to describe anything. The only task you have is to keep every single ounce of the bandwidth of your mind, pulling it away from your eyes, your ears, your sense of smell, your tongue, and the rest of your body, and packing it into that patch of skin. And while you do that, you're going to breathe in, breathe out, and between the out breath and in breath, you're going to count 1, 2, 3, and so on until you get to 7, and then from 7 back down to 0. On 0, you can take a moment to just adjust the body, etc., if you need to, but other than that, keep the body completely still. Okay, here we go. So, as soon as I say begin, great force immediately bringing the mind to the nostril and the counting. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, begin. Okay. Take a short break. Since I haven't done these in a while, can everyone see me okay over here? I guess I won't be able to read your replies, but I'm sure you can see me well enough. So the work on the hips to make the hips more comfortable is a really simple exercise that comes through the Confucian Confucian tradition that I learned through one of my teachers here. And you take your hands, you place them wherever they're going to be for the meditation. Yeah, because you want to work on the hips and the shoulder at the same time. And so you keeping the hands fixed where they're going to be, not rigidly or anything, but just fixed where they're going to be. You lean forward, and then you lean to the corner, right? If you were on a square, in a sense, and then you continue leaning until you get to the back corner, and then the other corner, and so you make circles like this, which work on just little tiny bits of flexibility and comfortableness while keeping the spine straight. So you hopefully you can see this on the video, but my spine is actually staying even though I'm leaning, my spine is still straight on this angle. I'm not bending it, right? I'm not making it a different shape than I would for the meditation. So you do circles like this, and then you would do circles in the other direction. So if you're having trouble with your hips complaining, and the hip joints complaining, and the shoulders complaining, this is one exercise that's quite helpful. Now, if it's the middle back that's complaining, this one I got from my first really serious mentor. It's very simple exercise, but something about just moving forward and back like this, while again keeping the spine straight so that you're now just rocking straight forward and back with a straight spine, right? Still straight up and down, but the spine that is straight up and down is now being rocked back and forth. Something about this tends to loosen up the mid back area. Next, quite a bit of the pain and discomfort people feel in the upper back and the neck actually comes from the shoulders because the shoulders are held artificially back to exaggerate like this, or the shoulders are held artificially forward. I don't know if we're getting lag or something. No. Okay. Seems to be going. So the how do I say? So one exercise that comes through the Taoist tradition for dealing with this, same thing. The hands are placed wherever they're going to be for meditation. So let's say that you have them here, and you just think of your shoulders a bit like the pedals on a bicycle, how they go like this, right? And they pedal forward and back like this. If I do it from the side, then you can see. So it's like this, right? And then same thing, if you were to pedal the pedals backwards, they go like this. So with your shoulders, having your hands where they'll be for the meditation session, you just take the front one, lift it, move it forward, take the back one, drop it, and move it backwards so that it's like the bicycle pedals, right? and you just start pedaling forward, for example, pulling the shoulder that's up goes forward and down, the shoulder that's in the back goes backwards and down, right? Or the opposite. So like this, you're learning how to take every aspect of how those shoulders sit in the socket, and with the hands in the position they're going to be in for sitting, you work those joints and you work the upper part of the spine and you work the muscles that connect the shoulders to the neck in such a way that you're creating more space, more blood flow, more comfort in the shoulders based upon the position you want to rest them in while you're meditating. And then the final one, that the only thing we haven't worked on in this whole series of relatively simple movements is the rotational aspect of the spine. So, in terms of rotating the spine, again, relatively simple exercise, hands where they're going to be for meditation. You start from the bottom of the spine like this, and you rotate up until you get to the top of to the base of the skull. And then you start from the bottom again and you release. Don't unfurl yourself on purpose by turning back. Just release from the bottom and relax and let the spine return to normal. So I'll show you. So if I start turning from the bottom, you'll see that my torso starts to turn. And I just continue turning my spine one vertebra at a time until I get to the top of the spine. And then I'm turning the neck. And because I've been doing this a while, I end up looking behind me. Right? Some of you may not end up that far and see where my hands are. They're still here in my meditation position. And then I start from the bottom, not from the top. And I'm not turning myself back to the front. I just start releasing the spine from bottom to top until my body returns back to where it was. So I'm training my muscles to be able to, all the little rotational muscles to be able to clench. And then I'm also training them to be able to release. So same thing, then you go the other way. So starting from the bottom, turning one vertebra at a time as best you can. Starting from the bottom again, releasing the muscles that are required to hold you in place in a cascade moving up the spine. And if you do this a few times, think about what you've done to your body, right? You have your body's the spine in the position you want it to be in, which is relatively speaking straight up and down. You have your hands in the position you want them to be in, and you've done an exercise that makes the hips and the shoulders more comfortable. Then you've done an exercise that makes the mid back more open, more blood flow, more comfortable. Then you've done an exercise that makes the upper back and neck, in terms of its verticality, and the shoulders, of course, have more space, more blood flow, more comfortable. Then you've taken the last bit, which is the rotational aspect of the spine, and you've gone both directions. The only other thing you might add on to add a little bit more space would be something where you're actually turning, or not turning, but you're actually bending the spine from side to side. But I find just with those original four that I showed you there, you'll cover most of the aches and pains that you're dealing with in terms of your neck, your back, your hips, etc. if you do a fair amount of them. So if your body's complaining and it's not behaving when you're trying to sit, especially if you're sitting longer than 15 minutes, then those exercises can be quite helpful. The confusion tradition, that's right. uh, Good to see you, DJ. Confucian, Confucian. Shortfin says meditation isn't real. You should definitely let half the religions on Earth know this. They're going to be very disappointed that you've uncovered that they're all fraudulent. Also, the cognitive scientists who have spent since 1960s millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars researching meditation and showing that it's real. They're going to be really disappointed that some guy on the internet says it's not. This is going to be a big disappointment to them now that you've pointed this out. You know, what a unbelievable disappointment to all these researchers and religious people who are doing meditation and proving that it's real. My goodness, how are we going to get the word out? Mm. Okay, word, yeah. Yeah. So there's a principle in Taoist practice called Zofagong, which means, roughly speaking, involuntary movement. And from a traditional Chinese medical perspective, you don't just have a physical body, you also have a subtle physical body. Same thing in the Buddhist tantras, same thing in Taoism, blah blah blah. When you start meditating, things start moving around in there. And if the body isn't set up pretty close to perfectly in terms of posture and everything else, then the body will start trying to adjust itself. So you're sitting there and the head goes like this, and you go, "Wow, that's weird." Or the shoulder goes like this, and you go, "That's weird." And so, yeah, you'll have all sorts of stuff where the body moves itself around as you're trying to train in concentration. And mostly you can ignore it. And one of my teachers actually said, if you try to make it stop by tensing up or something, then when a pulse of something comes through to try to make the body correct and you've clenched everything around it, you increase the risk of getting injured from from the involuntary movement because you're trying to stop it from happening and something else comes through, right? And yeah, you can get injured that way actually. Purple guy says my head always drops. Yeah, that's because oh, how to say. So if you think about concentration as a volume knob and you think about your body's ability to stay in the posture you placed it in when you're not monitoring it, also as sort of a volume knob, you have to match the frequency, match the volume knob on both settings, so to speak. Otherwise, if you turn up the concentration too much and the body doesn't have the ability with that little attention in it to maintain its posture, then it starts to fall, then it starts to droop. And so you have to scale the degree of concentration back and put a little more awareness back in the body to hold it in posture, and then continue to bring the attention up until it starts to droop again and bring it back. So you're going like this. And this is pretty advanced stuff. This is not like meditation 101. This is meditation like master's degree level, okay? But if you're finding that if you're sitting for an hour or something and the concentration is getting a bit better and you're finding that the body is sort of wilting, it could be that your mind is getting dull. That's another reason your body would sort of wilt, that your mind is getting dull. But if your mind isn't getting dull, you could be putting too much of your attention in the object of meditation for what your body can handle at this time. So if there's too much attention in the object of concentration and you've pulled it away from the body sort of starts to just fall over because you right now you're deliberately holding it in a certain posture. So you have to get this is also, by the way, for people who are wondering what the connection is, right? Like, why do you need Lohan? Why do you need something where you're building the structure of the body? Because the body needs to be set up in a certain way so that it doesn't get in the way of your training and meditation later on in the process. How do you set it up that way? You train in something. This is why the Hindu practices have yogas. You do the yogas to set the physical yogas and the kriyas to set the body up properly so that it doesn't get in the way of your practice of meditation. I mean, you're also clearing out the channels and doing some other things for other types of practice that are coming on. coming down, coming through, for other types of practices that are going to be there later on in the system. So later on in the system, you're going to be doing stuff with the winds and the channels and the drops and all of this stuff. And you need the body set up in a certain way and the subtle body set up in a certain way to do all that. So the physical yogas are designed, and in the Lohan system, the Qigongs and so forth are designed to prepare your whole system for that eventuality. So yeah, if all the connections in the body are set up in a certain way, your body just naturally rests in this position, and it doesn't require very much bandwidth of your attention, only a tiny fraction or none to maintain its position. So when you're sitting here and all the attention goes out of the body and you're fully absorbed in the object of concentration, the body doesn't go and fall over. Right? That you have set up the structure of the body in such a way that it stays where you put it. Likewise, as you're turning up the volume of the concentration, if the body is starting to wilt, you have to turn down the intensity of the concentration and make the body correct, and then try to go in again and see if it falls over, and then come back out a little bit, and you have to go back and forth. But again, this is like meditation. This is not meditation 101 to put it in the college classroom setting. This is like master's degree meditation level practice. This is not PhD level yet, but if you can't, if that's what's happening, then you have to start refining how much attention is in the body versus how much attention is in on the object of concentration. And if it's too much on the concentrated object, the body will wilt and fall over, and that will take you out of the meditation, right? It'll distract you from the meditation because as the body goes like this, it's not working right anymore. Right. Uh, so for both of you guys, it could be a little bit of both. More commonly than that, which is a problem pretty far down, not pretty far down the road, but it's a problem that's sort of medium distance from the beginning process. Earlier on in the process, the problem that you'll have is that the mind is divided between the meditation object and the fact that the mind is getting calm. You're distracted by the fact that the mind is getting more calm. And so the lucidity, which starts out really bright, the mind's looking at the meditation object and it's going, wow, look at that object. And then it goes, wow, look how calm my mind is. And the lucidity and the brightness and the intensity of the cognition of the object of meditation becomes less because you're taking bandwidth away from it to look at the fact that the mind is calm. When you do this, they call it sinking or laxity or dullness. The mind becomes basically dumber. And if you continue focusing on, oh, the mind's so calm now, there's so few thoughts, and you're just sort of, eventually you start slumping over because that mind is dull, and the body's reflecting the fact that you're resting in a dull, stupid, half asleep state of mind. So this is a big problem, actually. And so that's for most people who say, oh, I'm having trouble where my head is falling and this sort of thing, is because you're entering a state of dullness. You're getting distracted by the calmness and going like this. And then if that keeps going, you'll fall asleep on the cushion. So definitely if you're noticing yourself, oh, I've been meditating for a while, now the head's doing this weird thing, oh, now I'm nodding off and falling asleep a little bit, that's laxity. That's not the problem I was just discussing, which is probably a little bit further on than the problem I was discussing. So then the solution for laxity is, as we've discussed many times, you can do all sorts of stuff in the session that can increase the lucidity of your mind, but those are really hard to do. What's much easier is to change to a type of object where it's really hard to not be lucid. That's much easier than learning how to apply all the antidotes while staying on an object that's good at making the mind calm, but not good at making the mind lucid. So how do I teach that? Well, Foundation 2, we do standing body scanning meditation in an upwards direction. You're standing, so it's harder to become dull, mentally dull. You're doing a body scan in an upward direction, ending at the top of your head, which tends to make the mind more bright and fresh, not make the mind more dull and sleepy. And then we move on to Mahamudra style practices where you're focused on the external five senses as the object of meditation, which tends to make the mind really bright and fresh and lucid, right? So I'm in the way that I teach the five foundations, which for those of you who are interested, by the way, when I train people in this a bit more seriously, if you wanted to do something to support the community financially, because I do all this stuff for free and I have it available for free, it's all on YouTube for free. But if you wanted to train a bit more hardcore with me and support financially, you could join uh, the Five Foundations meditation course, which is in the description below. You could also join the 18 Lohan course because my techniques will be baked into that course at a relatively early stage in the course, probably all within the first year of the course. Uh, yeah, it's hard to, in brief, talk about the whole thing. Anyways, yes, good to see you. Good to see you, Hans. Lakshmi, can chanting help? For laxity, depends on how you're doing it. I mean, you can still fall asleep while you're chanting. You know? Okay. Okay. I think I think that's it. Yeah. Here tomorrow again should be around 8:30. Sometimes I'm a little late. My apologies, but quite often I also stay late. Okay. This is Dr. Jared Jones signing off. I don't have my special cup, so I will just say hope to see you again very